I thought running was for criminals, but it's an easy thing to do, right?
Totally.
Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried & Jensen. As proud sponsors of Beliefcast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires Beliefcast. Thank you once again for tuning in, and as always, believing in me and in this amazing cause and supporting our guests that come on. And, you know, we've got bestsellers, national bestsellers coming on with their books, and, you know, people are out doing amazing things. And it's so great to be able to rub shoulders with people who are doing great things in life. And today's going to be no different. I want to first give a shout out to our sponsors, Siegfried & Jensen, Wasatch Recovery, Thread Wallets, and we've got a surprise coming up. We've got a drink that'll be the official drink of the Beliefcast. It's from a good friend of mine, but we're not official yet, so I'll wait on that, but that'll be on our next podcast. But grateful for that. Just so much support and so much love, and can't thank you guys enough. I love you. Today we are joined by Blu Robinson. Blu, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, brother.
Yeah, and we were just talking about your name. It's spelled B-L-U without the E.
Yep.
Kind of from a hippie mom that kind of said, hey, here's what we're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
But I love the name. I think it's really cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's not too many of us around, so
yeah.
it kind of does help.
Yeah. So, you know, you are doing amazing things, and it's truly an honor. I've been following you for years. Just from a distance, obviously, but I just love what you're doing and all the good. Did you just speak at a school yesterday?
Yeah, we spoke at the Foster Care of Utah conference up in Midway, Utah.
Yeah,
gorgeous up there.
So I get a text from someone who was there, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's amazing!" And it was you, and I'm going, "Hey, you have no idea this guy's going to be on my podcast
That's
tomorrow."
So funny. Yeah.
So it just turned out so good. But again, a testament to all the good you're doing. Right?
Yeah.
You are the founder and creator of Addict to Athlete.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that and how that started.
You bet.
You are a CMHC. You got your substance use disorder counseling certificate, a degree. You're doing so many good things. I don't even know where to start. So why don't you've had your rough times in your life. You've overcome. I really want to get into that. So let's start with, where did you grow up? And tell us a little bit about your family.
You bet. And that's one reason why I love your podcast, is because you get into a little bit of a deeper understanding of the people behind the efforts that they're doing. And it is interesting how the stuff that we thought might have been some of our roadblocks in life can turn into the most amazing catalyst to purpose. And I had no idea, with the way that I was raised, that one day I'd be able to, inspire and move and help kind of create something that would help people in a pretty interesting way. But I grew up all over the place. I was born in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I'm the fourth of a family of a mother who was married and divorced 6 times. She got married when she was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
So she was a kid having kids. And when you have that, kid having kids situation, the problem starts to arise that she doesn't know how to deal with some of the significant issues in life, because she didn't really get an opportunity to be an adult. And so when we were young and moving around and bouncing around, she moved us to Grand Forks, North Dakota, where she met my father, and he was in the military, pretty severe alcoholic. He was a pretty intense guy, and I never knew him, because one night in the middle of a Grand Forks, North Dakota winter, after some abuse that she had suffered through at his hands, she packed us all up and drove us back here to Utah. But that kind of created a series of a lot of moving. In fact, I counted one time that I moved 22 times before I was 18. Wow. And it was kind of like there would be times where there would be boxes that we never unpacked, because as soon as rent was due, we'd move. And she has a significant issue with substance abuse, the pill and medicated kind. Sure. But that put her into situations where she got into a lot of abusive relationships, and all of us kind of kids grew up and were subject to a lot of It's a lot of abuse, a lot of physical abuse and some sexual abuse. And the problem that I saw was that she preoccupied herself so much with not knowing how to love. Yeah. And also how to be loved. She just didn't know. And so all of us kids kind of started having problems. You know, I got into substance abuse at a very early age, you know, through my 14, 15, 16 years old, and kind of felt like this was just the way life was going to be. Yeah. Significant, you know, learning disabilities due to moving schools. I mean, we never started and finished a grade. So we bounced around 2 or 3 times in crucial years. So I remember one time, you know, going to school and learning, you know, 1 times tables, 2 times tables. Then we move and they're on, you know, 7, 8s, and 9s. And I'm like, wow, yeah. So I've always had a significant issue with mathematics and stuff, and kind of typecast myself into believing that I would be following the same shoes. It'd be marriage and divorce. It'd be, you know, whenever there's a problem, run from it. My oldest siblings followed that same pattern. You know, they all struggle with addiction. And when I was 21 years old, I had what I call a rock bottom. It was February 9th of 1996. And I decided, game over. Like, I don't want this, right? I'm done. And so there was some relapses and stuff, but I got very serious in 1996 about doing what I call committing social suicide, which was walking away from all the friendships, everyone, and just going it alone. And it was kind of a crazy concept because I just never thought I would amount to anything. High school dropout, the whole 9. Well, I'm going through and I'm just doing working to get by, moving out on my own, trying to, you know, spread some wings. I like to joke that my friends were Monica and Chandler and Ross. You know, those were my friends. I hung out with them for an hour a day, you know, 2 episodes. But I ended up getting a job working with youth at a program in Orem, and it was a significant change for me because I was just a courier, which was a job to take them to and from their doctor's appointments, run them to airports for visits and stuff. Right. And as I'd be driving them, they'd start talking, and for some reason I just kind of understand where they're coming from. And they'd say things like, "Man, my mom and dad are so mean. They sent me here." And I'm like, "It's kind of cool. Your parents care enough to send you a place like this." Yeah, right. You know. And it was an interesting experience, but, you know, I'd lied in my application saying I had like graduated high school and, you know, wore the badge of like kind of keep your head low. Yeah. But I met this girl there. Her name's Marissa, and she was a rec therapist over there. Okay. And I'm a high school dropout, and we started getting kind of friendly, and I kind of thought she was cool. But I had a lot of walls up. You know, learning how to mistrust people and just, you know, not understand how to do relationships. I didn't realize that she was interested in me. Yeah. But I put up a wall, and a lot of those were behind deceit and lies because I learned from the best. You know, if my mother told someone that the sky is blue, you better go out and look because she's not to be trusted. And my mom put us through such chaos and whatnot that when I started having the blinders come off a little bit, I started realizing like I've been in a really sick family system. And I didn't know that until one night when all the walls started to tumble down when this girl wanted to get a little bit closer to me, and she started realizing that things weren't matching up. Some of the stories I was telling, some of the things I tried to do to, like, you know, make myself look bigger, better, faster, stronger was kind of like falling out beneath me. And it all came to a head when a mentor of mine pulled her aside and said, "There's something deeper with Blue you might want to know. He's not done with school. He doesn't have these accolades." And she questioned me one day while we were dating, and she's like, "You need to get some help." So I went into a therapist. My mentor, I didn't know what this was back then, but he was something called a bishop, and I had no idea what that was growing up, right? Right. And so he said, "Hey, I've got this thing. I want you to go to, you know, BYU Social Services or Elias Social Services and go to this therapist." So I go sitting down in the therapist's office for the very first time. And I wish I could find this guy. His name's Arlen. I wish I could find him. I don't know who he is, but if he's listening, I want to find him. Yeah. Because I told him my whole story. And at the very end of that first session, he said, "I know what's wrong." He's like, "You don't really know who you are." And I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So I got up and I walked out, gave him a "good day, sir." Yeah. Went back to my fiance's house at that time, Marissa, and I said, "Well, I'm done." She's like, "What do you mean you're done?" I'm like, "One session, completely finished." "Yeah, I'm good." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, really, it's a rhetorical question he asked me. It can't be answered. I think it's dumb." What did he ask you?" "He don't want to know who I am. No one can answer that." And she said, "I can." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Who are you?" I'm trying to be snotty. Yeah, right. And she did. She started telling me everything that was her her morals, her values, her beliefs, her dreams, all these things. And I'm now sitting here as a 21-year-old thinking, what is this? I don't have, and it kind of shook me a little bit. So I had to go back and apologize to Arlen and be like, okay, I guess I need help. And just by me venting to him and being able to let go of some of this stuff and realize that I was severely abused, carry scars on my body from abusive stepfathers and whatnot. And so when we told the therapist I'm going to get married, he's like, you might want to bring her in. And I'm like, no, you're going to talk her around and marry me, right? Yeah. But she came in that first year of our dating relationship, her and I were completely like doing therapy. It was one of the best things. So we never had the honeymoon period and then the masks come off. All that stuff happened beforehand. And I'm like, I'm such a strong advocate for people going into some kind of counseling before that, just because no surprises.
Because no one does that.
Yeah.
Who goes, well, let's do some therapy before we get together.
Nobody.
And we get married. No one does that.
Exactly.
Wow. And again, I love where you're going with this, and I love your story. Let's go. I want to ask you, going back just a little bit, you said you moved, was it 22 times?
22 times.
I work with a lot of clients who are struggling in their, adult years. And a lot of times it stems back to they were moving all over the place. And you mentioned how it was affecting the way you were learning.
Oh, yeah.
I hear a lot from clients, and I want to see if this was also part of it, is you get attached to some of these friends and you start feeling like you're included and you belong. Oh, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're moving again.
Yep.
And they talk about how it's like a traumatic experience for them. Did you feel that way as well? Did you feel like, man, I finally got this friend group and now I've got to leave again?
Yeah. And the significant issue behind that, because I knew they were always changing and I knew I had to make friends quick, that's where I started to kind of really like become more, I guess, precise with what I'm telling these people. And I would boost myself up and I would lie a lot because it didn't matter. I needed to make friends fast. And then it doesn't matter about the outcome because we're leaving. Yeah. And it started getting a little hairy when there were times that we could make rent and we were there for 6-7 months. And I'm like, oh, crap. But that's kind of what happened, where it does work that way. And so, and I got used to that, and I didn't realize that I learned from the best. I learned from her, my mother, and a lot of hers was self-preservation. A lot of hers was like, she was authentically hurt. Something had to have happened to her to want to leave and get married at age 14.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think my grandparents signed off on that. Like, I remember my oldest daughter turned 14, and I'm like, she can barely help out with household chores, let alone
could you imagine signing off on that with her?
No.
Right.
My mom passed away last August, and unfortunately, because of the situation, we didn't have a good relationship, and it took about a week and a half before I even realized she was gone. No one really told me. Wow. And I saw a picture of her as my sisters were going through some of their stuff that wedding day, and she looks like a baby, and I'm holding that, and I'm thinking, what really happened in her home? Yeah. But you don't realize that as a kid. But as I'm going through life and having poverty, and we're government cheese lines and all this stuff, I got really angry at her and about this father of mine that never showed up. Yeah. And the crazy thing about that was, I remember all the times I would fantasize, maybe he's going to come rescue us. Maybe he's going to give me some stability. And that fantasy after a while turns into anger because I'm like, well, he really left. He's not coming back. Yeah. And they'd tell me stories about him. Oh, he's so abusive, and he hit your siblings, and he did this to me. So then I really started getting super vindictive with just this emotional tug of war. And I had a very strong plan that if I ever saw him, I'd either knock his teeth in, or spit on him or whatever, right? Funny enough, after I got married and we were going on, I actually did get to meet him in person at my grandmother's funeral, no less.
Really?
Never saw this person in my life.
I
was working at the Utah County Division of Substance Abuse, and I get this phone call from some lady called my Aunt Edna, which is so classic. I think this is a phone scam.
Totally.
Aunt Edna.
Yeah, isn't that a vacation reference? Edna from Vacation?
Completely.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what? And she's like, I've been looking for you all over the place. And I'm like, who is this? And she's like, I'm your Aunt Edna, and your grandma so-and-so passed away, and we want you to be a pallbearer. And I'm like, what? And now I have 2 kids of my own at this point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, responsibility, I'll do this. But I knew that if his sister's going to be there, my dad would be there.
Yeah.
So the day comes, and I remember it was so crazy. at this point, I'm an adult. I'm in school to get my LSAC back then, right? The licensed substance abuse counselor. And I remember holding my 2 youngest kids, my daughter Brooklyn, she's like 6, and my other daughter Savannah's 4. And as we pulled up to this place where they're holding the funeral, I see all these people, and I'm holding my girls in both my arms like a human shield.
Yeah.
And I come walking in, and I'm seeing all these people. Edna comes bouncing down, and she lives up to her name because she's this wiry, energetic woman.
Right.
And she's like, I'm your aunt, and this is your cousin's son. These are people I've never seen before.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like kind of blown away. And almost like the Red Sea, as I walk in, I see Grandma there. I'm like, I don't know who she is.
Yeah, right.
These people split, and there's this guy in front of me. And I knew that's got to be him.
Oh,
that's got to be my father. So
wow.
I walked up to him, and I put my girls down. And in my head, I'm thinking, get your fist ready. You know?
Oh, you
go
really
ahead,
thought that.
Go ahead and get the phlegm up. You can spit on him. Like, tell him all the stuff that you wished he would have done, and then all that. Because that anger fueled my addiction.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I could blame my substance use on poverty, on abuse, on neglect, all that stuff. I had great excuses to use.
Wow.
And as my brain was contemplating how we're going to hurt this guy, I reached my hand up and shook his hand. And I said, it's good to meet you. And I remember I'm like, what are you doing? Now's your time. But it was good to meet you. And it was instant forgiveness. And
really,
that's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, because you can read books on forgiveness and we can teach it. But when it really happens, it's so universally personal.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to explain. I can't really tell you, because walking into that, I was going to tell him off.
Yeah, you were going to punch him.
And in a moment, it was gone. And
wow.
They have the funeral, and at the very end, he walks up to me and he says, he's like, I really want to get to know you. And I said, that's okay, because I don't need you. I have a family of my own. There'll be 2 beautiful little girls there. And I said, but if you want a relationship with me, here's my number. 2006, never heard from him again.
Really?
That was our only interaction. But I felt like it was done then.
Yeah.
And my kids growing up now, they'll never understand like the significant pain that I went through. They'll never have to understand what that feels like. And to me, that's just as enough of a badge of honor than having the traditional relationship. I'm like,
absolutely.
I want to teach them.
Absolutely. And you broke the cycle, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, because you said growing up, you were like, I'm destined to be poor, divorced, drug addict. I mean, all the list goes on, right?
Yeah.
And you go through some of those things because you're struggling, but yet you get through this and you break the cycle. And I've heard, I don't know exactly how it's said, but like breaking cycles of generational dysfunction is the single hardest thing any human being could ever go through.
I believe that.
Right. And
100%.
you're living it.
Yeah.
You know, and wow, what a incredible story. I mean, I really felt when you said, hey, nice to meet you, I want to shake your hand kind of thing. That hit me so hard when you said that.
It's kind of a crazy thing too, because we look at these points in time where, and I wish things could have been better with my own mother and whatnot, because there's nothing more that I would love to have her or someone that is my family look at what I'm doing and say, hey, good job. Like, you know, when I realized that my mother wasn't going to be an emotional like support for me, and I started really getting involved with my wife now, and, you know, we've been married now for 24 years now.
Well, congratulations, by the way.
And I've completely blown all of them out of the water. I think my mom's longest relationship was 10 years, and my siblings were 5 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so there was something odd about me, I guess. But I remember when I was graduating college. I mean, I went back and got my high school diploma as an adult, because my wife's like, hey, I think we need to get you some paperwork behind you. And so I tried to prove her wrong. Like, watch how stupid I am. Like, I can't do this. And so I graduated adult high school, and I thought that's good enough. And then we went to, UVU, and she's like, college. And no one in my family's ever stepped foot in college. So that was super overwhelming to me.
Right.
And I thought I was dumb because I didn't do math good and all this crazy stuff. And I started really having a little bit of a passion for it. It was hard,
Sure.
I mean, it was not easy for me. And there was a lot of classes that I skimmed by, but I made it. And I thought, okay, that's good. And then she's like, well, what would you think about a master's degree? I'm like, that doesn't even sound possible.
Like, are you kidding me?
But I did that too. And I remember when I graduated with my master's degree, it was one of the craziest things. My mom had moved back east with husband number 6 at this time. And it just so happened that I found out she was going to be in town for my graduation. And I'm like, my sister Christy calls me and she says, Blue, Mom's going to be here. And I'm like, well, I'll invite her. And I hadn't seen her for years in between this.
Time.
Yeah.
Right.
We had a conversation where she once told me, I don't want to ever speak to you again. I said, well, be careful because I'll honor that. And she hung up on me. And so I wrote her a letter and said, this is why I'm upset. All I wanted was you to say sorry for the stuff you put us through. I mean, again, I carry scars on my body from the husband you brought into our lives. And this letter that I kind of wrote her explained all that kind of stuff, like help me understand why you'd put us in these situations. What were you going through? Just questions that weren't to invoke a fight, but more like help me understand.
Yeah.
And 6 years went by. But I was graduating college. How crazy is this, right? A master's degree. And I call her up and I'm like, you're here. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, my graduation's at the E Center, right? Oh, Maverick Center now. I don't know what they call it nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you come? She's like, oh, well, my plane leaves at 4. I'm like, that's great. It starts at 10. I mean, from the E Center, you could walk to the airport in an hour.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, okay, yeah, well, let me see. And so the day comes, I'm graduating. I look up and I can see my cute little family, my wife and my kids. And no mom. She never showed. Wow. And that was kind of like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But those kind of things.
It's still painful. Though.
Oh, for sure. Because isn't it weird as an adult, we still want that validation from a mom or a dad,
right?
Just to say, God, you're doing good.
Yeah.
How about you? Look at that.
Yeah.
But just never came. And so it was kind of a sad thing because when I drew that line and that boundary, because she was, not really emotionally safe or really able to have a relationship, it just, took off. And then the sad thing is she never got to even meet my youngest son. Like she never even got to see him.
Wow. That is sad.
But I wanted to do the exact opposite. And I think because of that, we've been able to have an amazing relationship with my kids. I love being able to just to know them. And they're all getting older now. My oldest is 20. My youngest is 13. And it's just wild, like the relationship that we have that they never did. My biggest fear is that my kids won't understand that wasn't easy for me. I didn't know how to be a dad. That was a scary thing.
Sure.
I mean, when I first had my daughter, Brooklyn, my oldest kid, I'm walking around with her on a pillow. She's newborn, and my wife's like, they're kind of rubbery. You're not going to hurt her. And I'm like, I know, but dads hurt kids, right? And I'm thinking, how can I hurt? Wow, it was just a subconscious thing. Like, I don't want to hurt her.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of one of those things like, oh, I guess I can hold her. And I can't because I'm not going to hurt this kid. I mean, but I was scared because I had really crap examples of father figures. And so a dear friend of mine said, Blue, you just do the opposite of what you were taught. And I've always kept that close to my heart. And so that's kind of the turbulent childhood in a very, nutshell version.
Nutshell, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on still behind the scenes. You're obviously not able to share because of timing, but thank you for being vulnerable. I can imagine, like you said, when you were a father for the first time, it's almost like, man, you even said it, dads hurt kids. Because that was your experience.
Absolutely.
But yet, what I found interesting, and it chokes me up to even think about this, you're carrying your baby, your child around on a pillow. Yeah. Because even if you really thought that that's what dads do, you were proving to yourself, I'm not going to be that dad.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the dad that actually is going to be overprotective, if anything.
That's true. That's a good way to put it. And that's funny because I have been too. I'm like, I've really been that person for them, and we have a great relationship. But
I'm a big believer that life happens for us. And as I'm hearing your story, and we're going to now hear I want to hear about Addict to Athlete. Yeah. How that even came about. It's a crazy story there too.
Absolutely.
So let's tell our listeners what that is. Those that may not know about it, and then kind of how it came to be.
Yeah. So Addict to Athlete kind of stemmed from a necessity, really. I was working as a therapist for Utah County, and I was noticing that all of our drug court clients, they were responsible to attend their IOP and GOP sessions with me.
Okay.
And so that usually started at 9 in the morning, went till noon. And then they'd have to go talk to their drug court supervisor.
Yeah.
And that would be another hour. And then they'd have to go check in with their probation. And then they'd have to go and see the judge once a week. And then they had to go to work. And then they had to be assigned to 3 outside community meetings every week, too. And so we'd hand them these little slips, and they'd have the chairperson of the 12-step meetings kind of sign their sheets. And I, when I first got into it, I'm like, this is, you guys have a very well-rounded, recovery program going here. Well, not too long after I started, I noticed that a couple of my clients were huddling around the back of a pickup when I came back from lunch once. And I kind of snuck up behind them and like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, jump. Turned around and see me, and if you could believe this or not, they were forging their sign-off sheets to turn in. Like, they didn't attend these meetings. And
Surprise,
yeah.
Right?
I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, this is super like addict type behavior.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, Blue Coot, we'll be honest with you, man. Like, he's like, I don't have time. And I'm like, well, whenever someone says that, that's a lie. We always have time. What's your priority?
What's the priority? Yeah.
And one of them kind of was like, it's not a priority of mine. And now I'm thinking, well, it should be, but I'm in my mind is saying you should be. In my therapist's heart, I'm like, they're right. Like, this is kind of weird. Like, we're occupying so much of their time, and my whole goal is to help them become these, these role models, these parents back to their kids or their families, but they have zero time with them. Yeah. And then if they have to go somewhere that's not working for them. So I was thinking about that for a while, and I know that for me, mountain biking helped get me recovered. When I started working at that job as a courier, I started having this funny little thing called money because I wasn't spending it on stupid things. Right. And I earned enough money to like kind of get a little nervous with it. When you're in early recovery and you have all this cash, it's not a good thing. Sure. And it's funny because this is just, natural thinking, but I'm like, I went to the bike store in Provo and I handed them this big thick wad of cash. I'm like, what can I get for this? And they're like, we'll show you.
Yeah, they're all excited.
Yeah, they hooked me with this amazing mountain bike, and I was so excited. I took it home, and it was wall art. I didn't know what to do. Yeah, I didn't want the money, but I had this amazing mountain bike. And then one day, I got after hanging out with my friends for that hour, I just got on and started riding it. And I started riding around the foothills of Springville. Got kind of deep up in this weird place in the mountains, trying to ride my bike. And these guys come down, and they're like on their mountain bikes, and they look at me and they're like, dude, are you lost? I'm like, yeah, in a lot of different ways. Yeah. I had like a cut off shirt, Levi jeans, flip flops. I mean, no helmet, nothing. They're like, well, follow us. We'll take you down to the trailhead, because I didn't really know. So I was watching them. We're going down. Yeah. And at the very bottom, one of the guys looks over and says, look, we come up here all the time, and we'd be more than happy to show you around up here. He's like, but first, get a water bottle, get a helmet, right? And get some shoes, because and I'm
flip flops aren't going to cut.
No, and I'm like, helmet might be a good idea. I love it. And so I went and bought a couple of mountain biking magazines, started reading about it, got all the cool stuff, and I kind of felt like, man, I'm a mountain biker now, and that hit me pretty hard. Like, at that program I was working with youth, I used to take them to their 12-step meetings, and so I sat through hundreds of 12-step meetings as a staff. Not telling anybody about anything, but listening. Yeah. And I really have a soft spot in my heart for the steps. Sure. There's some things that I'm like, I can understand, And so when I felt I was free in the mountains and riding this bike, I started realizing this principle that I carry today, which is movement equals healing. And instead of just sitting talking about it, like our bodies are designed to move, we've got to move. Yeah. I started turning into a mountain biker. I no longer said, hello, I'm Blue, I'm an addict. Now it's, hello, I'm Blue, and I'm a mountain biker. I kind of started thinking about this, like if it helped me, maybe something like that would help them. I got into running with my wife's father. He was a big runner, and I thought running was for criminals, but it's an easy thing to do, right? Totally. And so I started running with him. I proposed this little idea with my bosses, Bruce Chandler and Richard Nance. I said, I want to take a group of people and just train them for a couch to 5K. It's a little train for a race that was literally right outside our group room on University Avenue. It was called the Chase the Mayor 5K. They give Mayor John Curtis at the time a 2-minute head start, and then the athletes would chase him.
I actually know John really well.
He doesn't realize how significant he is to Addict to Athlete, and he may not even realize that he even did this. But So we're training for this 5K, and I go down and I said, who wants to do this? I'm thinking about having a little group before our meeting. So you guys come at 8 instead of 9. We'll stretch out. We'll do couch to 5K program. Only 5 out of the 30 raised their hands, 4 guys and 1 girl. And it was the funniest thing. So we start training, and as we're training for this dumb little 5K, right, all of a sudden they start talking to me a bunch more. We're running, and they're like, Blue, I've been thinking about my probation officer and what he said, or I've been thinking about like my relationship with my dad, and we're having therapy sessions as we're running.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you guys talking to me about this stuff out here, but not in my awesome feng shui office? Like,
right.
I'm like, this is public. And they're like, I don't know, I just feel like I need to get it off my shoulders. And so I didn't know what we were doing. I'm just training them to run this 5K.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The day finally comes, and all their families come to watch because they're like, there's no way these guys are finishing this race.
Yeah.
They came to mock them, all right?
Yeah.
So there's the race. Right before they started, one of our guys, Tyson, one of my original athletes, he gave everybody a T-shirt that said Addict to Athlete. And I'm like, ooh, are you sure you want to wear this? Because remember, this is 2011.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
totally.
I've been told that it's anonymity and you keep it quiet. But they're like, we're proud of what we're doing. We want to show people who we are. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So we put these
Here we go.
Addict to Athlete Racing for Our Recovery shirts on that they just made out of clip art. Those are the most hot shirts now. I mean, that's like one of them belongs in the Smithsonian. I swear, people want those so bad. It's so funny. They give Mayor John Curtis the go. 2 minutes later, the whole pack chases him down, and all but one athlete caught him. But the coolest thing happened, and this is why I don't think John realizes the magnitude of what he did. And I've been trying to get him on my podcast too. But as the first athlete passed him, John's like, hey, wait, what? Addict to Athlete, what's that? And Tyson, one of my original athletes, then got to have a conversation with then the mayor of Provo about his heroin use and about this new thing he's doing. And I got thinking, I wonder if he thought, I'm getting beat by a heroin addict? Like what? Like he caught me?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I could only think of that. But he kind of made mention to that of a few other athletes that caught him. And I'm sitting at the finish. They all come in. We're cheering. They had this huge big boost of like, wow, we're doing something. These strangers are cheering for them just because they ran. They felt so good, and their families were proud of them. And it was just kind of a cool feeling. So I thought, okay, cool, one and done. That was awesome. Yeah. Well, Monday rolls around. I get a call from my boss, Richard Nance, who says that the commissioners heard about what we did. And I thought, oh, crap. Maybe one of them did slap the mayor's butt on the way by. And I'm thinking,
are
I'm
we
in trouble
here? Yeah.
And somehow Mayor Curtis had said something to someone that kind of got back to the commissioners about what we were doing. The commissioners called my boss, and they said, this is pretty cool. Whatever it is, we're behind it. And so they gave me a green light, which I wasn't even expecting to do.
Right.
And it turned into another resource, another outlet for recovery that we practice a little bit different. We do things different than the 12 steps because that's sacred for that.
Sure.
And so I tell people for the team and for the recreation, you come here for that spiritual component and that accountability. You go there, and if you're in counseling or therapy, it's a triad of recovery. We don't call ourselves addicts. We know it's a part of us, not who we are. And that was kind of a rough one in 2011 to help people understand, just to broaden their horizon.
Yeah, I love it.
Because I'm a firm believer, whatever comes after the I am is your absolute truth. And so it's got to be something positive.
Amen to that.
So that's kind of how it started. Now we have about 7 chapters in Utah. Got a couple thousand athletes. We're outside of Utah now. We're at the state prison doing all kinds of stuff.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's amazing. Yeah, simple little thing, a simple little idea turns into this.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works. I'm a big believer too that when we're doing the right things, good things start to kind of fall into place.
Absolutely.
And you had this great idea to help people, and you were just doing your part of, hey, trying to help some people, and look what happened. And look what you're doing today. I love it. I want to talk about, you hit something that I'm really passionate about as well. And I talk a lot about it on this podcast about, what follows I am, it follows you. And you said it's the most important truth, and it should be something positive. I really do believe words have power.
Yeah.
Because I look at it this way, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Blue, on this, is like you and I used to be addicts. That's the truth. The truth is, as well, that we're both clean today.
Yeah.
So why would I label myself an addict right now? Because the truth is I'm not.
Exactly.
And we're both smart enough to know that if we go back to our drug of choice, or any drug for that matter, we're back in it.
Yeah.
We both understand that.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that and the power of words and the narrative there? I'd love to hear more on that.
It's a big part of what we do on the team. And we caught a lot of flack for that right at the beginning. I mean,
I bet you did.
and I love it. And
I love it though too.
I was talking to Mary Jo over USARA over at one of the recovery days, and she introduced me to somebody and said, Blue and Addict to Athlete kind of led led the first wave of these community support groups outside of that. And I thought that's such a humbling thing to say.
Totally, yeah.
Because when I started teaching, like, guys, there's more to you than this. It was not easy for them to comprehend because they've kind of been told that that's what they are. And I'm like, well, I understand that, but I'm a convert to the church, and I didn't realize the magnitude of again, not knowing who you are, right?
Right.
And as I kind of grew into myself, I started realizing that we have to be careful with labeling ourselves with something negative. Now, we've got to know it exists.
Sure.
Like you said,
sure.
we have to recognize that. But it's a part of us. It's not who we are. So now I was an addict. Now I'm a mountain biker. Now I'm a runner. Now I'm a husband and a father. To prove the Lord has a sense of humor, I got called to serve as a bishop. But I'm like, I have no idea. I'm only a convert to the church. I don't even know what this is. And so
anything's possible, right?
I'm telling you. I did an interview with BYU TV once, and we were talking about Addict to Athlete. And when they found out I was a serving bishop at that time, and I had an addiction, he put his hand over his mic. He's like, "Should we be talking about this?" I'm like, "Yeah." All my members see my car pull up with Addict to Athlete stickers, and half of them come to my meeting, so they all know.
I love it.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right, is I wanted them to start understanding that it's always going to be a part of us, and that part of the addiction that it can bring great power because everyone has a story. We say all the time on Addict to Athlete, let that mess be turned into your message by our philosophy of erasing it and replacing it with something of greater value. And so it's been kind of fun to like see people grow into their I am and not have to just settle. Even our name, Addict to Athlete, we use the Roman numeral 2 for a specific reason. The Romans don't identify 0. You can never be less than 1. And so it's not even registered. And so once you put 1 and add the next one, and it becomes a column, and you can build on that. So it's a foundation. And so 1 is important, but 2 is even bigger because then you build structure off of that. And so we take a lot of I think passion in understanding that the addiction's always there and it can wake up. There's a trauma threshold that everyone has that if it gets crossed, that if we don't have our tools in place, we could probably slip again.
Right.
I talk a lot about that, like trauma threshold, losing one of my kids, tragedy. That would be really hard for me to maintain recovery.
Yeah.
But now I know lots of people that have unfortunately lived that trauma threshold, so I can't even use that as an excuse.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be horrific to go through, but you're right.
And if we ignore that fact that it's still in there somewhere, and that, believe it or not, that addict part of me helped me create Addict to Athlete because, you flip the script.
Yeah.
You create something out of nothing. If your client wants to get high but has no money and no means necessary, at the end of the day, they'll find it. Sure. That's kind of amazing.
No, it's real amazing.
You flip the script and say, now you can do something positive with the same principles,
Absolutely.
There's no stopping them.
Wow. I'm looking at your hat right now, the logo's on there, and I love logos, by the way.
Oh,
and your logo looks great.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
And thanks for kind of clarifying that. And I think your approach that you're taking is, I think it's spot on, and I'm on board with it wholeheartedly. I saw this morning. I haven't shared it with anyone today, and I thought of this podcast with you today, and I wanted to read this quote to you, and love to hear your thoughts on it. It's kind of a long quote, as you can see.
Let's go.
But it's by James Allen. He's the one who wrote As a Man Thinketh, and this is out of his book, Light on Life's Sorrows. And here's what he says. I'd love to hear your thoughts. When one has reached the lowest point of sorrow, when weak and exhausted and overcome with a sense of powerlessness, he cries to God for help, and there comes no answering comfort and no succor. Then, discovering the painfulness of sorrow and the insufficiency of prayer alone, he is ready to enter the path of self-renunciation, ready to purify his heart, ready to practice self-control, ready to become a spiritual athlete, and to develop that divine invincible strength which is born of self-mastery.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to take that. I love that.
And what hit me is, addict to athlete, that become a spiritual athlete.
Yeah.
It kind of just resonated with me. And I thought, and after knowing what you do for a living, I thought, man, it was really fitting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power behind that. Thank you. I will keep this. There's a lot of power behind that. And I think, the premise of Addict to Athlete, one of the first things we wanted to do was help change the public's perception on who these folks are. Yeah. They're amazing people, and everyone has someone that struggles. Everyone does. Yeah. And so, when we were able to start moving into these situations by which they can, start feeling the power that they have by moving amazing things started to happen.
Yeah.
When we were running it and all of a sudden they start telling me about their histories and they're telling me deeper things than they ever did, I thought I was breaking ground on new techniques. But really that spiritual awareness they were having by movement, left-right brain stimulation, which ended up being EMDR therapy. I'm thinking I'm creating this whole new path of like, I'm like, we're talking, we're processing.
Totally.
I go to get trained in EMDR therapy for trauma and I'm like, oh, it's already been invented. But what I notice is that, when I'm working with these clients and they start feeling that movement, instead of just sitting there and saying, follow my hand, if we're walking, there's something stronger with that. And in my office, I do private counseling. I have 2 treadmills, one next to each other. And I've been doing some studying on like, which is faster, which has a better grasp and better hold. And I'm noticing that the people that are walking, A, they don't realize that it's happening. They just are walking. But B, it seems to take hold quicker because the awkwardness of it is gone. And so when I read this, the whole principle and foundation of Addict to Athlete is to show them like, you've got to move. Yeah. You can't just stay idle. You have to move. There's movement and healing and movement. I love this too because I've seen people that have conquered these incredible races, ultra marathons, right? And we got some flack from that at first. They're thinking, oh, you're just erasing their addiction, but replacing it with a new one. And I'm like, well, I'd much rather have them be addicted to 5Ks than heroin.
Exactly.
But I get where you're coming from, and balance in all things. I understand this, and so we practice a lot of those principles.
Sure.
But I've watched my athletes. There was one young man who was just running up these hills, just crushing them, and he'd pass people. And I'm like, how are you doing that? That's insane. My legs are on fire, and you're just cruising up there like they're standing still. And he's like, Blue, it does hurt. But he said it doesn't hurt as bad as that first night at home when DCFS came and took my kids in the silence that resonated in my house. He's like, that hurt.
Wow.
He says it doesn't hurt as bad as that time I pushed it a little too far and I got shoved into a jail cell, and the sound of the reverberation of that metal door slamming, it felt like it penetrated my heart. He's like, that hurt. Yeah. So when I'm running up these hills and it hurts, it doesn't hurt as bad as that. And to me, that's a spiritual awakening. That's kind of like they're feeling the metaphoric change, and they're feeling the emotional change. They're doing it. And then they have this line they cross. They get their medal. They have something tangible. And sooner than later, they start coaching the next people. Yeah. And that's kind of what happens. I mean, Addict to Athlete, we want people to get into that situation where they can train and coach the next. Yeah. I get emotional. The next one's coming up because that's where the team cohesion comes from. So it's a powerful quote, and it does purify heart and practice self-control because
as one of my clients would say, that's a smoke hammer.
Yeah, I like it. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. And thanks for those beautiful words you just shared. And man, you can just tell your heart's in this, man. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is beautiful. I love it.
it.
I want to ask you a question. If someone is listening to you right now, they're in a dark place, they're not sure how to get out of it, no matter what that reasons are that they're in that dark place, what would you tell that one person right now?
I would say it's time to move, and we do it in 3 steps. We hear it every time. We heard it when we were kids. We hear it if we do high school sports, track, whatever. The first one is to take your mark, right? Any race begins with athletes take your mark. There's something significant about taking your place. Ooh. Like being able to move to that spot that is yours. Yeah. And you think about what taking your place, taking your mark is. Maybe that's you getting into that seat in a meeting. Maybe it's, that seat in front of a therapist, or maybe it's the seat in front of someone that you need to have a conversation with. But when athletes, take your mark, take your place, there's something big about that, because there's a spot there for you. Dang, and it's waiting.
I love that.
You have to move to get there. The next one is to get set, right? Getting set's kind of interesting because that means that now you're there, you've taken your place, and now getting set kind of means look at your goal. What's down there? What's at the end of this path that you want? Like focus. Block out all of the boos and all the cheers, let all that just be noise, and just focus on what it is that you actually and authentically want. And then what do you really want? And then be ready to go. Take your mark, get set, and go. And when that gun fires or that horn blows, you move. Yeah. And movement equals healing. And it's one of the neatest things. And so the hardest thing is realizing that you have a place.
Yeah.
You take it. Does that make sense? And so,
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's like,
I love it.
Don't just wait.
Yeah.
Like, take your place.
So good.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone wants to reach out to you, Blu, and get to know more about your Addict to Athlete, and just maybe even reach out to you for some help or to get to know you better, ask you a question, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is to just jump on our website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find all of our backlog podcasts, content for your recovery, our blogs, our calendar of events. We have all kinds of stuff going on. And now that September's over, September's always a busy month with Recovery Month.
Yeah.
With our proxy 5K we do, and we did our very first softball tournament this year, and just a lot of cool movement things.
Yeah.
Our meeting schedules, you can attend one of our meetings. They're all free. And we have just about as many people that don't have addictions at all. We call them the muggles, right? The non-magic folk, because they have someone in their family on their team that's hurting.
Yeah.
And so, we don't split them apart like traditional meetings. I want them to learn from each other. And it's funny because you can't really even tell. We have just about as many people that don't use that come that do. And it's kind of a funny thing. And they bounce off each other. And then our minor league program, which is our 18-year and younger kids.
Okay.
We just support the crud out of those kids. We want to get them involved in swimming and biking and running. And all of our schedules on addicttoathlete.org. The goal is to help you strengthen your own home team so that you have a home court advantage in recovery and in life. Yeah. But our sober coaching programs are up. Everything's there. All of our contact information. It's kind of a one-stop shop.
That makes it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it easy. And I'll put the links in the show notes, and so it'll be easy for our listeners to get there and click and get involved. And I encourage anyone listening to this right now, get involved, support Blu in this cause. And even if, like you said, even if you're not an addict, everyone knows someone who's struggling in this area. Mm-hmm. Join one of these one of these races, one of these community events that you're doing, and get involved, and it'll be awesome.
Absolutely.
I think, right?
Yep. We'd love to have anyone and everyone.
Yeah. Well, Blu, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your
pleasure.
schedule to be with me today. This has been long overdue.
Thank you.
We're finally doing this. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
For all the good you're doing. I really am impressed.
Thank you.
I truly am. And going back to what I said earlier, I teed it up a little bit about life happens for you. All that stuff, all the hell you went through, all the dysfunction, all of it led to you being this person who's making a difference in so many people's lives. You wouldn't be in this position had you not gone through it, right?
Nope.
So how cool is that?
All necessary steps to get where we are.
All necessary steps.
Mm-hmm.
I heard from a client that's currently here at Wasatch yesterday say, the obstacle in the way is the way.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, thanks for sharing. I mean, that just clicked. I'm like, you're right. That's it. Here's your obstacle. Okay, it's in your way. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's like your Spartan races over here, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all metaphorically connected. I love it.
For sure. So, well, you are awesome, Blu. Thank you so much. Right, Blu Robinson, guys. Here he is in the flesh, and I'm grateful to be rubbing shoulders with you. I want to help support any way I can. If you have someone who's struggling with addiction or any reason whatsoever, you're not sure how to talk to them, send them a link to this episode, and it'll break the ice, and then you can follow up with them and say, hey, what did you think? What did you think of what Blu said? And then maybe get them out to one of these events that Blu's doing, or one of these meetings that they do, just to kind of break the ice a little bit. Introduce yourself to Blu, and obviously you can tell he's a great guy. And,
thank you.
And so I love you guys. Thanks for the support. Again, thanks to my sponsors. I love you guys. And again, thanks for all your belief in me. It means more than I can express in words. So Blu, once again, thanks for all you do.
Oh, it's been an honor. Thank you, brother.
You bet. Take care, everyone. Thank you.